Hey, how's it going? This is Anthony V from Undispensable. And today I want to talk about how you can raise cash quickly should you need to. And we're going to discuss sound and ethical methods that will work without raking you over the coals. When I started writing this article, I immediately thought back of my days working for the US Army in Hawaii. Right around the installation, actually right next to where many of the soldiers lived, you would find a lot of these payday loan companies. And many of them would promise to extend several hundred or even $1,000 to a soldier in exchange for, part of their next several paychecks. And what many of the soldiers didn't realize, or many of them actually did realize, was that they were going to be paying at minimum double-digit interest on the advances that they would receive. Now, I mean, granted, these companies kind of tended to prey on the newer soldiers, the 18 or 19-year-olds, but then they would also serve the wives or the husbands of soldiers who also happened to be stationed there. So just one of those things that really, struck a chord with me as I saw it. And I'm thinking about ways that you can generate cash rapidly, even without going through the hassle of the payday loan, because realistically and honestly, those interest rates are usury. When you get into the double-digit interest rates that most credit cards are going to charge you anyway, but for an advance, then you're definitely in a place where there are other options. And what I want to show you, number one, is how to make sure you don't get into that situation where you do need that advance in the first place. But number two, some other options. I mean, I understand that life happens and sometimes you just need some extra cash. But at the end of the day, if you can avoid it and if you can avoid being subject to those really high fees and those really unfavorable terms, then I think that that's something that you should absolutely try to do. So, as I said before, unexpected financial situations are going to happen to everybody, even the most careful among us. And when those financial emergencies occur in your life, you may find yourself tempted to go for the easiest way to raise that cash. Now, there are usually better ways, and these are the types of things that nobody teaches you in school. If you can keep your wits about you when the times get tough, money can often be raised in ways that have minimal long-term consequences. Let's go over some steps that you can take to help you calmly assess the situation and determine which options would be best for you. The first step that you need to take is to be certain that you really need cash. Now, you might not even need cash if your expense is relatively small. Now, maybe you have some gift cards to stores or restaurants that you've forgotten about. And also, there are some credit card programs that have reward points that frequently go unused. So check around and see if there's something that's available to you that maybe you're not looking at right now. The next thing we want to do is go over what we don't want to do. These are all the things that we want to avoid if at all possible. And if you can avoid these, try and do it unless you have a very specific reason that is going to help you counter the possible downside risk and you've acknowledged that there are possible negative outcomes out of these. So the first one that I put down here was family loans. This can go either way, but generally speaking, borrowing money from family and friends can be a positive or a negative experience. Now, whether or not this is a good option for you really depends on your unique situation. Consider the likely outcomes now in terms of strained relationships if you're not able to pay them back as you agreed to. And in many instances, if that happens, it can cause some hard feelings for a long time. Now, friends and family may be the first ones that you can go after. And if you're able to structure it in such a way that it is not only gets you the money that you need, but also is respectful of your family and friends, then I think that that's something that you can do. But you just need to be sure that you're not going to be alienating them with your requests for a loan. As we mentioned earlier, payday loans. This is absolutely positively some of the worst way that you can raise cash, as there are really high interests and really high fees that come along with payday loans. Additionally, you need to be employed to get a payday loan. Now, when you consider the interest and the fees that are associated with these loans, you could easily end up paying them back twice as much as they lent you, sometimes even more. In my personal opinion, these should be avoided at all costs. Another option is a title loan. These are loans that use your car title as collateral. Now, much like the payday loans, these are really expensive and they're also really risky. If you can't pay as you agreed, you'll lose your vehicle. No joke, no joke there at all. Now, you also need to consider the terms of the agreement, the specific terms of the agreement, while the title loan company has the title, and you also need to examine the downside risks of that. Finally, cash advances from credit cards. Now, these advances are another expensive way to get some cash on your hands. And here's a really interesting point. Now, most of the purchases that you make with your credit card don't actually start accruing interest immediately. They go through your payment cycle. However, when you get a cash advance, it does. And they can carry over a 30% APR in many instances. So interest will oftentimes start accruing on those cash advance credit cards immediately right away. Now, of all the three that we've mentioned here in terms of the family loans, the payday loans, the title loans, and the cash advances from credit cards, like I said, depending on what your family situation is, this could either be a really good option or a really poor option. These two, I think, would have to be avoided at all costs. And if you can get a cash advance from your credit card, that may be the next best thing right there. But let's talk about some better options that might be available to you right here. And while these are still not your best option, you can withdraw money from your retirement account. Now, obviously, you want to consult an attorney before taking any financial action like this, but here's a loophole that you can use to avoid taxes and penalties, and this is current as of 2013. If you transfer your IRA into a new IRA account, you have the option of having money sent directly to you on the condition that you deposit the money into a new IRA account within 60 days. If you can replace the money in that time frame, you're getting an interest-free, penalty-free, and tax-free loan. You can do this only once each year. If an IRA transfer isn't an option for you, you can also sell saving bonds that you have that haven't matured yet. Now, this, of course, assumes that you have savings bonds. And another thing that you can do is consider selling your stamp, coin, or jewelry collection. Now, keep in mind that if you're going to sell them quickly, you're unlikely to get a good price. That's why I strongly recommend with something like selling a stamp or coin collection is to look into online services such as eBay or Craigslist. Now, even with eBay fees and charges, oftentimes selling an item on eBay or even on Craigslist is going to provide you with substantially higher return than if you try to sell it at a local resale shop or pawnbroker. We've all seen the show Pawn Stars on television. And you'd be lucky to walk into that store with a $10 bill and get offered $5 for it because they'd say something like, well, I got to make money here too, and it's got some wrinkles in it. Now, this is definitely not how you want to go about negotiating for cash when you're selling assets to pay the bills. But unfortunately, this is how many go about it. So we've gone over what we want to avoid. We've gone over the better options. Now let's check out what your best choices are. Your best choices are to sell some liquid investments. Selling items from your non-retirement portfolio is, for many people, the best way to raise some money. First, sell those items that have been stagnant and show no sign of doing anything in the near future. The second thing you can do is borrow from your 401k. However, there are penalties and taxes if you fail to pay the money back. Finally, you can take out a home equity loan. A home equity loan is a viable option for some. Just keep in mind that you're putting your house at risk if you can't pay the loan back. Now, Rebecca and I actually have a home equity line of credit, which is similar to a home equity loan, with the exception that it's always sort of open and available for you. And we've used that strategically a number of times, and there are several tax advantages to doing that as well. But just something that you should be aware of And if you have a home right now and you do have some equity in it, it might be something for you to look into because then it's available for you in an emergency. So that's really important. So let's talk about planning ahead. So, having an emergency fund is critical to negating the effects of financial emergencies. Strive to save 3 to 6 months of expenses and leave the account alone unless you have an actual emergency. This is absolutely the most fundamental step you can take to ensure your financial security. Now, Rebecca and I have always made a pretty good living for ourselves. But believe it or not, we didn't have an emergency fund until about 18 months ago. And we've started actually investing in that quite a bit and putting quite a bit of money in there because we recognize that it's just something that's really a responsible thing to do. So, 3 to 6 months, whatever it is for you, I would strongly suggest that you go ahead and do that. And finally, avoid letting a challenging situation become even worse by making a hasty decision. First, you need to decide if you really need the cash. Maybe a non-cash alternative is going to be available for you. If this doesn't work for your situation, do some planning before you decide how to proceed. Be sure to thoroughly investigate the fees and the interest rates that are associated with the options that you have. And although unexpected expenses can bring with them tension and high emotions, it's really important to remember that a good choice now will result in fewer headaches later. Now take as much time as you can and make the best decision for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, I look forward to your feedback, and I hope that this message has served you. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.